Alright, number 45. The sequence below shows the total number of days Francisco, man, he's working out hard, had used his gym membership at the end of weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4. Assuming the pattern continued, which function could be used to find the total number of days Francisco had used his gym membership at the end of week N? Alright, well, I know that this is week 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I know that that represents, since it's time, time represents my x-axis. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I know that the gym trips that he's made is going to be my y. So really I just have a table here, don't I? And I know that this is going to be, if I look at the 4 to the 9, how do you get from 4 to 9? You add 5. How do you get from the 9 to the 14? You add 5. You add 5. So this is an arithmetic sequence right here. And I know it's linear because it's the same slope or the same rate of change. It's always changing by 5. So I know that my slope is a positive 5. And if you recall, y equals mx plus b, that number in front of your variable is your slope. And then that b represents your y-intercept. So let's look at our functions we have here in our answer choices. A has a slope of 1 because it's 1n. Well, it's not A. B has a slope of 5. That's what we had. C has a slope of 5. That's what we had. And D, that's just a 1 coefficient there, and that's actually called a quadratic. That's not a linear function, so it's not going to be D. All the others are linear because the variable is not to the second power. Alright, so it's between B and C, and this number represents that 4 and that minus 1. They represent the y-intercept. So how do I find my y-intercept? Well, it's when x equals 0. So if I reverse that pattern, that adding 5, and I subtracted 5, 4 minus 5 would give me negative 1. So my y-intercept has to be negative 1. So it has to be B. And if you're ever at a loss here, you can always plug it in. Like, you know that 4 represents the first one. So you could plug in a 1 for n, and 5 times 1 minus 1 should give you, 5 minus 1 gives you 4. So that means your first term should be 4. We'll look at our first term from the table. The first term is 4. You could also plug in the second term. So second term, 5 times 2 minus 1, that would be 10 minus 1, which is 9. And our second term from our table is 9. So we know that answer choice B is going to be the best one. Alright, Francisco. Have fun working out, man. Oh, and there he is after week 5. My goodness, all those trips to the gym have really paid off. Alright, number 46. The volume of a sphere is 2,400 cubic centimeters. What's the approximate diameter of this sphere? And they gave us the formula, and that R in the formula stands for radius, but they want us to find the diameter, so let's be real careful there. I'm just going to draw a sketch of a circle. That distance halfway from the center to the outside is going to be called the radius, and the distance all the way through the center is called the diameter. So again, that red, so the red line segment represents diameter, and the radius is half of the diameter. Alright, well, I'm just going to plug in. They gave me the volume, so if I just plug in for the volume, what they gave me, 2,400 equals 4/3 pi r cubed. All I want to do is solve for the variable. So my variable's r. So I'm using PEMDAS in reverse because I'm solving an equation. So do I have any add or subtract? No. Do I have any multiply or divide? Yes, I do. So I'm multiplying that pi number and I'm multiplying the 4/3. Okay? So I'm going to get rid of those first. So if I want to get rid of that 4/3, I can do times the reciprocal. I could divide by it, but dividing is just multiplying by the reciprocal. So if I multiply by 3/4, that's going to cancel out my 4's and my 3's and make that 1. Then I'll be left with pi r cubed. And then just multiply 3/4 times 2400/1. And if you recall that shortcut, if the top and bottom number have a common factor, I know 4 will go into both of these numbers. So 4 will go into 4 once, 4 will go into 2400 600 times, and then you just multiply across. 3 times 600 is 1800 over 1 times 1, which is 1, so it's just 1800. And now I'm on my next to last step. I want to get rid of the pi. I'm multiplying by pi, so the inverse is dividing. So divide by pi to both sides, and we'll get r cubed equals about 572.96. And our last step, we're on exponents now. So what's the inverse of cubing something? Now it's not division, it's taking the cubed root. So the cubed root of 572 is what we're looking for. And that's going to give us what r is. And what would the inverse of squaring something be? That's right. If it would have said r squared, then we would have had to take the square root to solve for r. Alright, I went ahead and hit the math button in my calculator. And that math button is just the third one down on the left. And I pressed, after I hit math, it's the 4th choice. So again, you press math and then 4 are the 2 buttons. And that gives you a symbol that looks like that. It's the cubed root. So when we take the cubed root of that, we get about 8.3 approximately. And look, you see answer choice C is 8.3. You may be quick to choose that, but remember we're looking for the diameter. So if we find the radius, remember your radius is halfway across, the diameter is all the way across the circle. So we need to take our radius and double it, and we get 16.6 centimeters. So it is going to be answer choice A. I know when you're taking a test, sometimes if you get an answer that matches one of the A, B, C, or D multiple choice answers, you may be quick to choose it, but always go back at your question. And if we underline that word from our question, we'll remember to look back at it. Alright, thanks for watching.